Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is DB Talking Now, DB Talking Birds, DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, there's been a lot of rumors swirling around over the last 48 hours that defensive coordinator Vic Fangio could be retiring. This would be catastrophic news for the Philadelphia Eagles defense. I feel like, honestly, since we've brought in Vic Fangio to lead the defense over the last couple of years, it's probably been one of the best units that I've seen dating back to Jim Johnson, to be completely honest with you. So the hope is that it doesn't come to that. There's been a lot of conflicting reports when it comes to the possible retirement of Vic Fangio. When the rumors first came out, the Eagles were the Vic Fangio was possibly considering retirement, and then the Eagles were scrambling to possibly hire back Jonathan Gannon or bring in Jim Schwartz as the defensive coordinator. The Jonathan Gannon report doesn't make sense. Just because the rumors of Vic Fangio retiring just came out earlier this, probably midweek this past week. And we've known for about a week and a half that Jonathan Gannon was going to Green Bay to be their defense coordinator. So I'm going to rule that one out. And also, who the fuck would want to bring back Jonathan Gannon? He was an offense. He was full defensive coordinator. Yeah, we may have had like the record, the franchise record in sacks. I think it was like 70 when he was the defensive coordinator. But on top, outside of that, like the pass defense was inconsistent. The run defense was inconsistent, and yeah. So Jonathan Gannon, even if he were still available, I wouldn't want to bring him back, and that would just be absolutely awful, an awful decision. I will tell you this, that there has been a couple rumors if he does retire, that I do like, which is the possibility of bringing in Jim Schwartz. Obviously defensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns. Once he was passed over for the head coaching position in Cleveland, he pretty much just said that he wants to leave, and he just basically said, I'm out. I want out in Cleveland. Obviously, we have familiar ties with Jim Schwartz. He coached the defense in 2017 when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles and Carson Wentz. So that's a possibility that I do like. If it does come down to Vic Fangio retiring, and God forbid, like I hope that doesn't happen. But there's also a report that I saw this morning. It was not only Jim Schwartz, but I did see, recent head coach who was let go by the Buffalo Bills, Sean McDermott, who could also be a possibility to step into the defensive court to take over for Vic Fangio. So we'll just have to see. And we do have ties with Sean McDermott as well. Obviously, he served as the defensive coordinator under Andy Reid when Andy Reid and Sean McDermott were both in Philadelphia. And I think that would be a good hire as well. If, as I said, if Vic Fangio does go ahead and retire. It does seem to me, I will say this, that it is picking up a lot of steam. It seems like there's new reports, every single day about Vic Fangio retiring. Yeah, I mean it's hard to ignore the steam. It's hard to ignore the steam. It's hard to ignore the smoke. So the contradicting reports were this, is that, it came out that he was contemplating retirement. And then there was another report that came out that the Eagles had convinced him to stay for another season. And then just a day after that, like there was another report saying, and so we've seen nothing but, we've seen nothing but those reports since it had initially come out. And yeah, it just seems, unfortunately, like that's picking up steam. That's picking up smoke. And usually where there's smoke, there's fire. Like I said, I don't want to see it happen. I would love for Vic Fangio to come back. There's there's many fans out there and many media, out there that say, well, if they, if Vic Fangio was going to retire, why didn't they just promote Christian Parker and, who was our, secondary coach who went to the Dallas Cowboys to be their defensive coordinator. And obviously there's a very high possibility that Christian Park, that we just didn't know, that we just didn't know yet that Vic Fangio was contemplating retirement. And so, yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see what happens. Like I said, I think Jim Schwartz would be a good name. I think Sean McDermott would be a good name. There's also the possibility of them promoting defensive line coach Clint Hurt to be the defensive coordinator. I thought about the possibility of them promoting Joe Casper again. Joe Casper obviously was our DB, was our secondaries coach, and is now or was the safeties coach, and is now the secondary coach taking over for Christian Parker. But I don't see them promoting him a second time within the same off season. So I think that it would either go to like a veteran like Jim Schwartz or Sean McDermott, or it would come down to them promoting Clint Hurt. But God forbid, I hope it doesn't happen. I hope we don't lose Vic Fangio. But the thing is that like, I have a couple thoughts on this. Which is like, obviously we have a bunch of coaching changes that we're making. And if Vic Fangio does stay for another season, there's probably a pretty high chance that it's just going to be for one more season. And so like, if you're going to rip off the Band-Aid, why don't you rip it off all at once? So that's kind of my take on it, is like, the sooner you make the change, the sooner that you have the ability to, the sooner that you have the ability to try and see if you can work it out and get it fixed and move on. And so I hope to God that like Vic Fangio does stay for another season, but I would definitely be okay with Sean McDermott or Jim Schwartz. And my thoughts on the possibility of promoting Clint Hurt, like, yeah, he's done a great job with the defensive line since he's been here, for sure. Obviously the development of Jalix Hunt, development of, Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and so on and so forth. But like, if it were Clint Hurt, like, that would be another question mark. Like, how is he going to do at defensive coordinator? Like, obviously he's been getting buzz around the league to go and interview for defensive coordinator positions, most notably the Miami Dolphins. But do we know how good of a job that he could do, if it were Clint Hurt that we were to promote? I would certainly welcome Jim Schwartz coming back. But yeah, I mean, for me, the way that I look at it, I do see that there's a lot of smoke regarding Vic Fangio leaving, and it's just hard to ignore. So it might, that might be some other big news that we find out, later in the week. Obviously today is Monday, so the week just started. So maybe we find out whether or not he's retiring midweek, or maybe tomorrow, or maybe later in the day, or maybe he doesn't retire. Who knows? But to drop that bombshell on us after we already lose out on Christian Parker, like, that's the thing, is like, there's a bunch of fans that like, well, why didn't we just promote Christian Parker? Well, maybe we didn't know. In time, that Vic was contemplating retirement. So we'll just have to see. As far as other notes are concerned, I mean, that's the big news out of Philadelphia is, are we gonna lose Vic? Other coaching notes and news is apparently Nick Sirianni and Sean Mannion are sitting down and having chats as to what the staff should look like on the offense. I really hope that Nick Sirianni doesn't get in the way. I really hope that he doesn't get in the way and he just kind of listens to Sean and allows Sean to bring in his ideas and his, ideas for coaching staff as well. Obviously there were also reports, as we talked about, that that Jeff Stoutland could lose run game coordinator responsibilities, and that very well could still happen. However, we haven't heard any reports yet or any updates on that yet. But it is a day by day basis. We're about a month out from free agency. I'm not sure what the Eagles are going to be able to do. Obviously with the cap increase, I think it increased from like 275 to like 307, 307 million for each team. So that does give the Eagles a little bit more wiggle room to work with guys. Does that give us the ability to bring Jalen Phillips back? Would you bring Jalen Phillips back? I think I would if I'm asking myself. But I wouldn't give him top dollar. I don't think he's done enough to earn top dollar at the defensive end market. Top defensive ends are going to earn like anywhere from around like 35 mil per year to 40 mil per year. And I just don't think like that's not something that I would do. Would I give him like 28? Yeah, 28 to 30 maybe. If that could get it done. I would love to retain Jalen Phillips. There's a bunch of other free agents that we might need to and you never know who they're going to be interested in, to be honest. You do have an aging Trey Hendrickson that's going to be on the free agent market that reportedly the Eagles were interested in at the trade deadline. And there's a lot of reports that the Eagles are going to be interested in trying to get Myles Garrett again. I just don't think that that's ever going to happen. I don't think Myles Garrett is ever going to be an Eagles green, unfortunately. I think he's a Cleveland Brown lifer. And that's kind of unfortunate. You feel bad for guys like that who are so elite and like once in a generation like talents, and then they go to a team that sucks and they never make the playoffs, they never make the Super Bowl. But unfortunately, that's the cold hard truth. Is that the only way that you can get players like that is by sucking. And so you have the first round pick in the draft, and then you go out and you draft Myles Garrett. And so on and so forth. So again, like Myles Garrett's trade value is probably still like 2 firsts, and that's not where the Eagles are at. The Eagles, we can't do that. E-Money, what's up, my man? E-Money Bentley, please like and subscribe. I hope you're having a beautiful Monday so far. Happy February 2nd. E-Money says, go Birds, baby, go Birds. Let me know how you feel about the coaching changes, the coaching hires, and also let me know what you think about the Vic Fangio rumors. I would love to get your thoughts on it. If Vic Fangio does end up retiring, it would be I would be a little worried. I'd be a little worried heading into the season. Now obviously all of that can be fixed with who exactly is that they're going to replace him with, but we'll just have to see how it all plays out. But there's definitely big things coming in Philadelphia, big changes. We've already seen a couple of them, obviously, with the new offense coordinator and the new pass game coordinator. Those are some big changes. And then we might even see some more unfortunate changes with Vic Fangio. Do the Eagles bring back Jim Schwartz? To coach the defense? That's something that I would definitely be on board with. I mean, despite the fact that the Browns sucked, over the last few years, this past season, like he did, they were the number 2 defense in the league. So it's not like Jim Schwartz is, like falling off a ledge. He's still got the ability to coach really good defenses, and he's still a very, very highly regarded and very prominent defensive mind in the NFL. So, and what does that look like? What is what does that look like? Obviously the scheme would change. The defensive scheme would change again, and I'm pretty sure when we ran the defense that we ran when Schwartz was here was a 3-4 from what I remember. So that would be interesting, actually. And if they do bring in Jim Schwartz and they do run a 3-4, that could also mean that they would bring back Nakobe Dean. And God forbid, like, regardless, that's all that I want. I want them to bring back Nakobe Dean, but it would probably give them more incentive to bring back Nakobe Dean if Jim Schwartz does come in, runs a 3-4, so on and so forth. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. But Sean McDermott, another great option to replace Vic Fangio if it does come down to this. Sean McDermott is more of a secondary guy, so I think he would do a good job with our secondary. Obviously Buffalo's defense has been pretty good with Sean McDermott as the head coach over the last 5 years or however many years it was. So and they've been opportunistic too. So I think that either option would be good. But we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see. Free agency is a month out. And I have a feeling that we're going to know fairly soon whether or not Vic Fangio is staying or whether he's not, because that affects the whole game plan, right? That affects the whole game plan going into the draft, going into free agency. The type of players that you want to bring in. Now, again, like if Howie likes a guy, he's gonna do his best to bring in that guy regardless. But it's always good to have your defensive coordinator's insight on the type of player profiles that you're gonna bring in. Obviously for Vic, Quinion was a huge deal. Players, cornerbacks that were 6 foot and above. I don't know if everybody remembers this, but Howie Roseman would draft these really small cornerbacks and these really small secondary players. And Vic Fangio comes in, and now we're drafting 6 foot and above at the cornerback position. And then also bigger defensive linemen as well. You look at a guy like Jalen Phillips, 6'6", 275. That's got Vic written all over it. So how does that change the game plan? If there is going to be a new defensive coordinator that does come in, what is he going to want? What is he going to look for? Anthony Weaver also was a name that I heard. Anthony Weaver is a former defensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins. That's a shit that I personally, that's the last person I would want. Wink Martindale is another name that I saw out there. Obviously he's got a shit ton of defense. He's got a shit ton of defensive experience. Currently the defensive coordinator for the Michigan Wolverines in college. But he would be a decent hire as well if you want to go back to the college ranks to bring in a guy with experience. But like I said, Jim Schwartz, Sean McDermott, if we made the change, if Vic Fangio were to retire, those are my top two candidates. But we'll just have to see. How it all plays out. But yeah, I wanted to come on here, jump on, do a quick live stream, talk about the rumors of Vic Fangio possibly leaving again. I hope he does not. But if he does, Jim Schwartz, Sean McDermott would probably be my top two candidates. Jim Schwartz is more of a possibility than Sean McDermott. There was only one report that I saw that Sean McDermott would be open to doing it, and I didn't see any other reports on Sean. So we'll just have to see, but we will know in due time. But there's a lot to look into, and there's a lot to research, and there's a lot of homework to do before we get into free agency and the draft and before the start of, obviously the season in September, which we got 7 months to go. But anyway, this is DB Talking Now, DB Talking Birds, DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles. Happy Monday, everybody. Happy February 2nd. I appreciate everybody that jumped on. And if there is any new news or anything like that, I will jump on and do an emergency podcast to get you guys updated. But I appreciate everybody. I appreciate everybody joining in. Peace out. One love. Go Birds, baby.